While liberals claim to be adamantly against racism, the truth is they embrace and openly encourage racism against white people, while at the same time pretending that it doesn't exist or justifying it as payback for some people owning slaves 150 years ago. While white people's careers are often ruined for a joke that black people find offensive, remember what happened to Roseanne Barr, or for just pointing out certain undisputed facts, overt racism and hatred of white people is not only tolerated today, it's celebrated. Many people refer to anti-white racism as reverse racism or reverse discrimination, which are deceptive terms because they imply that racism and discrimination are just one-way streets and something that's only carried out by whites against blacks, Mexicans, and other minorities. Those who are intellectually honest acknowledge and understand that racism is something every ethnic group experiences because of humans' hardwired tribal nature and the cultural differences between groups of people and the conflicts those differences cause. Critical race theory is another deceptive term which only obfuscates or masks what's really going on. When people hear about racism, they've been conditioned to wrongly think that it's aimed only at blacks from whites. This is why the term anti-whiteism should be used and should become part of the modern lexicon. But be careful, I'm sure it won't be long before the ADL and Southern Poverty Law Center add anti-whiteism to their list of white supremacist terms, just like they did with the innocuous "It's okay to be white" slogan. If you simply say that, they will label you an alt-right neo-Nazi. After all, Wikipedia says those are the only people who talk like that. The ADL is actually trying to change the definition of the word racism. On their website, they literally defined it as, quote, the marginalization and or oppression of people of color based on a socially constructed hierarchy that privileges white people. Their very definition of racism is racist. All the more reason why the term anti-whiteism should be used to more clearly illustrate what's happening. The ADL updated it after news went viral of their Orwellian definition, but their sentiment remains the same. Not to mention, calling it critical race theory throws people off, making them think it's not real, it's just a theory. Anti-whiteism is all too real, unfortunately. So that's the term that should be used to describe it. I've never heard anybody use it though, and it certainly isn't in any online dictionary yet. It could be by the end of the year, however, if enough people start calling it out when they see it. Remember when the word twerking was added to the dictionary? The dictionary adds new words every year, and this one is long overdue. It just popped into my head one day as shorthand for anti-white racism in the same vein as anti-Semitism, a term everyone is familiar with. When one word is used as a noun to describe something, it has much more power than a bunch of words trying to describe it. So again, stop calling anti-whiteism critical race theory and call it what it really is. Or at least if you use the term critical race theory, clarify what it really is to help educate people and wean them off of such a deceptive term. And while racism of any kind should be equally denounced, sadly it's very common for certain people and the liberal media to accept anti-whiteism as if that form of racism is somehow justified. One columnist for Affinity magazine wrote an entire article titled "Why Black People Are Allowed to Be Anti-White" and cited slavery as the reason, which was abolished 150 years ago. Anti-whiteism is increasingly being institutionalized, with a disturbing number of college professors and entire courses dedicated to painting the white race as a problem. Democrats are always adding fuel to this fire by labeling Republicans the party of white men and equating Trump supporters with neo-Nazis, and anti-whiteism is putting police officers' lives at risk because online activists perpetuate fake news that police departments across the country are filled with white supremacists who are looking for an opportunity to beat down or arrest black people. Such propaganda has sparked a rash of ambushes on random white police officers by unhinged thugs who gun them down when they least suspected it. While our country has a checkered past in regards to slavery and the treatment of non-whites, most liberals not only live in the past and blame injustices from hundreds of years ago on white people living today, but they themselves are openly racist against white people. Maybe we should point out to them that Africa is the slavery capital of the world, with millions of men, women, and children living in modern slavery. Not to mention it was black people who enslaved other black people in Africa and sold them to white people who then brought them to North America. Thankfully, for the most part, today we can coexist alongside one another in America despite our cultural differences, but in recent years we've seen a dramatic rise in anti-whiteism and new buzzwords have entered the lexicon like white privilege and white normative, which are used used to perpetuate anti-white racism. Websites like the Huffington Post and BuzzFeed, along with CNN and MSNBC contributors, take things even farther by claiming that only white people can be racist, and even blame white people for ruining America for everyone else. They use mental gymnastics by claiming that non-whites can't be racist because they supposedly have no institutional power and have redefined racism as a combination of power and prejudice. Blacks have no power, they say, despite a black man recently being president of the United States, every government agency, social media platform, celebrity, and Fortune 500 company catering to Black Lives Matter and openly encouraging anti-whiteism. The Marxists are even pushing the idea that all white people are beneficiaries of racism, even if they themselves are not racist. This results in white privilege, they say, and white people are now encouraged to check their privilege, meaning acknowledging the role that these supposed rewards play in their lives and the lives of less privileged people. White people who aren't racist at all are given advantages in America because of other white people's racism, they claim. It's not an exaggeration to say that there is a cultural war on whiteness, and that white people are being systematically demeaned and blamed for the personal and professional shortcomings and failures in other people's lives. We also see an epidemic of fake hate crimes in order to use the attention as leverage to further this cause. Many people are even seeing acts of racism where none exist, hallucinating like schizophrenics. It's interesting that while white people are said to be the supposed privileged race in the United States, Asians actually have the highest average income. Liberals don't like facts, though. White people must not only ignore uncomfortable facts about crime, out-of-wedlock births, and fatherlessness in black communities, or be labeled a racist, but also put them on a pedestal as special, not to mention apologize and be ashamed simply for being white. The leftists' rampage against what they call white America keeps growing. They began demanding that Confederate monuments be removed, but once they were all taken down, they moved on to statues of Christopher Columbus and now the Founding Fathers. George Washington and Thomas Jefferson have to go too, they say. They even want to tear down Mount Rushmore, as this Vice News article shows, titled, "Let's Get Rid of Mount Rushmore," and they're 100% serious. They want it demolished. Even before all this madness, I could see what was on the horizon, and back in 2015 conducted a social experiment where I asked random beachgoers to sign a petition to support issuing a new American flag design, telling them that since the stars and stripes are synonymous with slavery, the country needed a new flag for the New World Order. I recommended a rainbow pyramid to represent diversity, and many gladly signed the petition and looked forward to replacing Old Glory. There's so much more I want to tell you, but the thought police may be watching, so you'll have to read my books. That way they can't take a soundbite of me saying something out of context and twist it around to cast me in a false light. So order my book, Liberalism Find a Cure, which isn't just an awesome t-shirt I sell at markdice.com, but also a very serious book I wrote that details what the liberal agenda is doing to our society. So order it in paperback from Amazon.com or download the ebook from any of the major ebook stores, Kindle, iBook, Nooks, Google Play, etc. And of course, there's a link to the Amazon listing in the description below, so click it and head on over there and check it out.